Hello to our viewers around the world joining us from countries everywhere for the 2024 edition of the Trinidad and Tobago Energy Conference. The theme of this year's conference is Accelerating Action. It's been a packed day and a half so far. Earlier today, we had a very exciting development. We had the launch of a book about women in energy called A Different Energy by author Celeste Mohammed. We are joined by Ms. Mohammed and one of the subjects of the book, who is well known in Trinidad and Tobago and regionally, Miss Arlene Chow. Thank you very much for joining us.
You.
Celeste, let's just recap. I know we spoke about this earlier, but for our viewers just now joining us, why did you decide to write this book? Yes, energy is the lifeblood of Trinidad and Tobago, and it has been for quite a while. Yes, in some way, shape, or form, we're all tied to the energy sector directly or indirectly. Why did you decide to write this book?
Thanks, Shelly. Writing this book felt like it would be a favor to myself as a professional woman who has felt alone and who sometimes felt very misunderstood. So it felt like it would be a favor to myself. It also felt like it would be a favor to my little daughter. Because when you really think about it, the natural resources of this country belong to her, no less than the little boys in her class. She should be able to grow up and participate in the industry, whether as an employee or contractor, on terms no less favorable. I want that for her. So if writing a book such as this to advance the conversation, not only in the industry but wider, helps with that, yeah, I'm going to do it.
Were there any surprises in what you found out? I know you did a lot of research. You spoke to a lot of women, and key among them, of course, and the first one, the first story to be told in the book is Miss Arlene Chow. But were there any surprises in what you found? You go into a project like this thinking that, okay, well, I know what the narrative is going to be.
Mhm.
It's going to be about all, the hardship and what were the surprises?
Actually, Shelley, I was so uneducated about what women in oil and gas go through that when it was first floated to me and when I first started talking to the woman, I totally expected something different. I expected them to have these cushy little lives, very well paid, and I
Mm.
expected them to just be, as we say in literature, navel gazing, just like, oh, woe me. And when they
And
started
drinking
to
tea.
talk, yes. And when they started to talk, I was struck. I had to sit upright and say, no, these women really have been through some challenging things and not very different to what I've been through. In fact, more intense.
Yeah, and just let's stick a pin in it there because I do want to give, by way of introduction to our viewers, again, Celeste Mohammed is an author, yes, and she's published works of fiction before. This is her first work of nonfiction. But apart from being an author, Celeste Mohammed is also an attorney. She has written legislation laws which are still being used in other Caribbean countries right now to this day. So Celeste has been through the ringer, as we say, in the corporate world when it comes to the legal profession as well. This project was also commissioned by the managing director of an energy services company who's also a publisher. That's the MD of ASCO, and her name is Deborah Benjamin, and she will be joining us for an interview a little later on. Continue.
Yes, Shelley. So everything I heard was surprising
Yes,
in its intensity,
yes.
and I don't want to steal thunder from the book, and I'm sure Arlene will enlighten us on some of what she's been through. But let me just say that everything was surprising.
Let's go now to Arlene Chow. Miss Chow, I mean, I've read the book, and I encourage everyone to really pick up a copy and look at it and listen to these stories. The stories are not always what you think they're going to be. Arlene, this is an exercise in vulnerability. Everyone has seen you on the landscape. They know you. They know of you. They know of your reputation. In this industry, you ruled with an iron fist. You had to be tough. You were tough. This was an exercise in vulnerability, though. Why did you decide to tell your story? Why did you agree to this project? Was it invasive?
So I really nearly didn't agree. It took me weeks after Celeste came to me and said, would I like to tell my story? Because really and truly, it was invasive and it was very emotional to do something like this. And then I said yes. I spoke to my brother. Actually, I went back to the family thing and I spoke to everybody. I got their opinion because sharing this is so personal and was so hurt. Sometimes a lot of hurt went into this. So I decided to do it, and then every time I spoke to her, and we spoke face to face, and we spoke on Zoom, but as she said, she was surprised. Every now and again, she'd be like, like I'm like, what is wrong with you? Why are you pulling back like you're surprised? This is normal in the industry. But even after as she wrote it and she sent me the draft and I read it, I started to cry. It was like catharsis. And I decided I didn't want to send it again. So it wasn't like, yes, I do it, and then I read it and it was fine. I didn't want to. And I can't bring myself to read the final version. I just cannot. I just like, I'm not gonna read it again. I read it, that's it. But I didn't want to disappoint Shelly. I did not want to disappoint Celeste. I didn't want to disappoint Deborah. So I said, okay, I will do it. But it was a difficult decision for me to make because so much of this is so personal.
You've had quite the history. You grew up, and again, you have to pick up the book. And I'm just in summary going to tell you that you grew up, you came from humble beginnings, and you worked your way to the top. It seems and it sounds like, for it to still be so triggering and have such a deep emotional impact on you years later. You've been through a lot. Did you normalize or think it was normal, many of the things that you were going through at the time? What gave you the grit to finish the thing? Why didn't you just walk away?
I think it was my values, what I grew up and how I grew up at home. I mean, to be respectful to people, to be hardworking, to be professional. So anytime I face those things, I would say, Arlene, you have to dig deeper. And I think that's the story. Dig deeper, you could get it done. Look at your mom came from nothing, your father came from nothing. You can do this. Why is this an obstacle? And I always figured you can find a way around it. It was hard. And many, many times I just wanted to give up. I wanted to give up. But I felt, that giving up was not something I could even ever do. They say that you have different responses to stress, and one is flight and one is fight, going to fight. I know that, even when people, as they say, you do your performance program and they said, oh, Aline, you reacted like this, I go into fight. I know that. So I could not run away. I had to figure out how to do it and how to get it done. And that's what I did. I was angry. As a young person, I can't say I wasn't angry. I was like, why? Why do I have to go through this and other people aren't? They say that men get promoted because of their potential. Women get promoted because of what they have done and what they have delivered and their performance. So you look at a man and say, yeah, man, he has plenty potential. Let's give him that job. You have to show that you have done it 300 times, got an A 500 times, and then you get it. It made me angry many times. I think it's with age, I guess, with more wisdom that I look at it in a different way now. It's as a learning rather than the anger I had as a young person going through. And that is why, when I read it, I cried so much. And you know what, Shelly? Many women have read it so far. And each one of them, I'm always surprised. I mean, I'm getting like Celeste now when they say, you have written my story. Amazed. They said, Arlene, you have written my story. And my story I thought was mine.
But because you didn't share it, did you actually feel that you were the only one who had gone through this?
Yeah, because yes, it's an individual story. But elements of it, I resonated with women so much, and yeah, I can't tell you how many, maybe 5 or 6 women already told me that today during this conference. And I'm waiting to hear what men think. I am. My brother, he likes it, okay? And, he is my biggest critic, and he really liked it. But he's my brother, okay? So I'm waiting. And I saw mostly women lining up to buy the books, and I'm hoping that men are going to take the step and read it because I think not only my story, but of all the women. I mean, I the one, especially Mani, she's a lady from Suriname. I remember sitting on many of these energy conferences and looking at her present, present, present. When it looked like Suriname had no hope, she was there pushing, pushing. And I've been, sitting looking at Mani, and I didn't know her personally, but reading the story, it really resonated with me how much she fought because I've seen her fighting to get Suriname on the oil map, which it is now. So I hope, that when I see women lining up, that men will line up. So many men told me they're buying it for their wives. I tell myself, oh gosh, buy it for yourself now.
It's really an education.
Yeah.
That's something at the launch there that really struck like struck quite deep, which is that this was not meant in any way, shape, or form
No.
to be any kind of man bashing book or anything. But Celeste, you also did something apart from telling the stories of these women. You did a lot of global research. You had a lot of very interesting findings, and some of the findings, I just wanted to go into the common threads that you discovered in your process of interviews and research. What is the global research saying
Yes.
about some of the trends and some of the habits
Mhm.
when it comes to employers engaging women, not just in the energy sector, but the energy sector as well as across the board.
Yes. So again, it's my nature as a lawyer to require precedent and corroboration.
Yes.
So talking to these women was one thing, but then automatically I was like, okay, let me see how what they're saying tracks what is out there in the global arena, the oil and gas industry. So I did the research, and it was amazing to see everything that they said personally on the map in terms of the global research as to how women are treated. One of the things that blew my mind, I didn't know about it before, was this concept. Everybody knows the glass ceiling.
Yes.
Women can only get so far, and then you look up. But the concept of the glass cliff, and when I read it, I said, oh my God, this is true.
What is the glass cliff?
The glass cliff, to paraphrase, really means in a situation where it is likely or more than likely that a business venture will fail, people trot out a woman and put her in charge. So they put her on the cliff. So that if it fails, it's possible to say, oh, well, it was a woman in charge.
Now, is that, from what your research has shown, is that deliberate, like,
I don't know if it is,
or is it just habits and society?
I don't know what it is, but they have empirically shown that this is something that happens. And women respond to it and run to the cliff because we get so few chances to be in charge. So if you're giving me a chance, I'm going to take it, not thinking through why you might be giving me a chance.
Pause right there. Did you face this, Arlene?
I'd say I've had to do some really difficult things in my career. I mean, I mentioned one when we switched from oil to gas, and I had to send it to 82 women, 82 men, and I remember the number up to this day. That could have been a glass gift, but
Mhm.
I was actually asked if I would do it or if I wanted to move out. But I said it was my men, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to treat them with respect and dignity so that they can understand that they have added so much to this oil industry, even though we're moving on into a gas environment now. So I didn't really have that much, but I've seen it in the book as I read through the stories of different women. I didn't have that. I actually had a choice more than once. Are you going to do it? And I said, of course I'm going to do it because I'm not leaving my men behind.
And that's the interesting point too. So you've also interviewed people from different points in history, modern day,
Yes.
present day, decades ago, everything. Do you see incidents and cases of glass cliff phenomenon still happening or happening today in the same rate it would happen, for example, 20 years ago?
Well, it's hard to say across 8 women how prevalent something is in the industry, but certainly the whole concept of the glass cliff is a new one in the
New in the sense
research.
that they've now found a name.
They've now found a name for it.
Okay.
They've now found a name for it. I remember that experiencing that as a lawyer myself, being trotted out to do things that the older male partners didn't want to do because, it was a possibility, it was risky. But the other thing, Shelly, I just wanted to point out that was surprising, apart from the glass cliff, is the whole queen bee phenomenon.
Yes.
We all know who the queen bee is, Beyonce, and they actually named this particular thing after her. The queen bee phenomenon is one where, in a male-dominated environment, where few women succeed, after a certain point, they become very protective of the favor that they enjoy with the men. So when a new female enters the environment, junior, that queen bee triggers, she's triggered in her queen bee mood, and she does everything possible
To
to get rid of that
Arlene,
gatekeeping.
did this happen?
I did not have many women as managers. As a matter of fact, just maybe one in Petrotrin. So I did not see that, but I could understand. But as I grew in the industry, I realized how difficult it was for women to move ahead. And I always told myself that I would coach and support women as much as I can. And I always think about Madeleine Albright saying, and I really believe it, there's a special place in hell for women who don't support women, especially in the oil industry. Because we have it so hard already. Come on, give me a break. Support your sister, let them, see how best they can get ahead. You helping somebody does not bring you down. Come on. And every time I see that, I'm like, the crabs in the barrel thing, stop it right away. It's not going to happen on my watch.
Mhm.
It is
That's actually the closing interview of the book, which is the Guyanese interview. That is, I ended with her message, that girl, that lady, Grace Hudson from Guyana, ended with her message because she's very clear on this whole queen bee thing, this whole gatekeeping thing, and the need for allyship
Mhm.
among women across the industry. And as she said, if you can help one, just help one,
Mm.
and we pass it along.
Yeah, you have to help people.
Now, you've also told the story of women in other countries, as you've just referenced, and the findings, at least from the people that you spoke to in Suriname, were somewhat different.
Yes, that was something surprising for me. Yes, so Trinidad was kind of a mixed bag. Guyana, I spoke to Grace and she was, very much talking about allyship. And then I'm talking to these ladies from Suriname, and mind you, they all work for the same company. And they all say the same thing, whether it was Marnie or Sharista or Vandana, they all said the same thing, that where they work, women are in the majority,
Mhm.
men more so in the minority
Mhm.
at management level. And for that reason, I asked one of them, is it that there's no pooling of testosterone to make things go crazy? Because if you don't have enough men, you don't have the same kind of energy as when you have more women. They all said, there were more women than men, even in management, even on the board. And so there was a whole different vibe at their place of work.
So this conversation is going to continue through some more interviews later on, but before we go any further and before we wrap, I want to put this question to both of you because you've both held almost, minority positions as women in male-dominated environments as well. And this is not an easy question to just conclude in one sentence or to answer in one sentence, but can you have it all? Can you have the children, the family, the successful career, the absolutely everything, and hold it together to meet the expectations of society of being superwoman?
So my answer is no. You can't have it all, and you cannot be perfect. There will be things that will fall off. I've had regrets on my a marriage that I got divorced. Maybe I should have spent more time with my kids, etc. But you have to learn to forgive yourself, to do your best and forgive yourself. So many times we don't do that as women, and we just, blame ourselves from all kinds. You cannot have it all. Do your best. Try and balance the best you can. And of course, the science says that women who have interests outside of just the home have kids who have interests, have varied interests. And that's what you need in this world. You need to have kids who like to discover, who like to search out new things. And being a woman who's working, tends to have kids like that as well. You cannot have it all. You cannot be 100% perfect. Get over that. Forgive yourself and move on.
Celeste?
The young people have a saying, get rich or die trying. Well, I feel like with women, no, you can't have it all, but we certainly do try.
Yes.
We try to be perfect or die trying, and it isn't healthy for anybody. It certainly isn't healthy for our families, our children. And I think that is really what Arlene is speaking about, being able to draw some boundaries and really for ourselves decide what is the right balance.
Mm.
Final ladies, what's the key piece of advice that you would give to a woman in not just the energy sector, but any male-dominated environment, now going in, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed? What would be the one piece of advice?
So you will have a lot of stress. You will have a lot of challenges. That's something that you get in any workplace, whether it's male dominated or not. Stay true to your values. And in times of difficulties, lean on them really, really hard. And that will take you through whatever you have to face. Stay true to your values. Work with people where your values align with them as much as possible. And in that way, you can be happy in the 10 hours or whatever you have to spend at work. Stay true to your values. When things get tough, lean on that really, really hard.
I agree. And I would go further and say, people can take a lot of things away from you. They can fire you, they can do a lot of things, but they can't take away your reputation. your reputation. Sooner or later, even if they try to, the truth comes out. And for me, that was always my guiding star. All I have is my name.
I want to thank you both very much. This conversation we'll be continuing a little later on. We'll be hearing from the publisher on one of the subjects as well of this book, Women in Energy, called A Different Energy. This is the 2024 edition of the Trinidad and Tobago Energy Conference. We're coming to you live from the Hyatt Regency here in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more exciting content.